for each one of us. Either we are working or whatever we are doing, because the lesson apply right from our kitchen everywhere. Therefore, dear delegates, beloved one, you are warmly welcome once again. This evening, as I was saying, as I keep on hammering, we have among us one of the best, the expert we have, in name of Mr. John Flynn. Mr. John Flynn is an Irish man. Welcome, Mr. Engineer Afis. So Mr. John Flynn is from Ireland, but not only from Ireland, he's also an African. You will hear from him. Therefore, let us warmly welcome him as you have the floor. Flynn, here you are, you have the floor.
Thank you. OSHA, Dalu, Nagode, Benahausa, Beribo, and a little bit of little bit of Yoruba, little bit of Igbo, little bit of Hausa there. Yeah, my own wife is actually an Edo girl from near Aichi in Edo State in Niger. So I spent quite a long while in Nigeria, so and other parts of Africa. In fact, I've worked in about 26 different countries across 4 different continents. So seen quite a lot around the place, enjoyed it, and tend to go places because I grew up in a place called Belfast, where the militants for 30 years were quite active, shall we say. They tend to send me places in the world where other people are afraid to go. I've always decided that where I go, people will be afraid of me. I won't be afraid of them. So it tends to work out that way. Okay, worked out very well. So we're going to talk about something which a lot of people are quite afraid of, and with good cause. We're going to talk a little bit about fire. Now, I wonder, have any of you actually been involved? Now, I know we all know about fire. We've seen like a fire. We've seen fires from a distance. We've seen fires in our kitchens if we're cooking in an open fire. In my country, when I grew up as a little boy, every house had an open fire in the front room to keep us warm. At the minute, it's 19 degrees C in the room that I'm sitting in, but outside it's 6 degrees, and by the middle of the night it will be down to 2 or 3 degrees. So we do need a bit of a fire to keep us warm in the days before central heating. And the figures I'm quoting you for here is including global warming. This has been one of our warmest winters, and we're down to 3 degrees outside in the middle of the night. When I was a little boy, the temperature outside was minus many times. And I've walked around pretty much like this in sub-zero temperatures, but only for a short while. So we've all had that kind of experience of fire. Somewhere in our house, or seen a building on fire, but from a distance. Has anybody actually been involved in a situation where they have been in danger from fire? You've been in a building and that building has caught fire. If you could maybe just indicate, and Leon can take a look and tell me, anybody who has...
You can raise up your hand by
using... raise your hand if you have been trapped in a building in fire, you've had to go into a building in fire and rescue somebody or something like that. Or you've had to put up, maybe help extinguish a fire. Anybody been involved in anything like that? No? Wow. Wow. You've all been very lucky.
You have one hand.
There's 2 people, Vola and Delight Nelson. They have both been involved in some way or another. 3, Janet. Okay, Janet, thank you. That's 3 of you. So 4. Osinachi. She's been involved in it as well. Good. So that's at least, well, maybe it's not good. I don't know. Maybe you had a very bad experience. So I'm sorry if I said good, but at least some of you have experience. Now, for those of you that maybe don't have the experience of the 4 people who have raised their hands, I'm going to ask Leon if he wouldn't mind playing a little video for us. And it's a little video. When Christmas comes round, in most European countries, we of course celebrate Christmas, and we put up a Christmas tree. And you have lights on the Christmas tree, and they're plugged into electricity. And sometimes, did you see a little flash there? Sometimes it goes on fire. Now look at the little clock, 5 seconds, 6, 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds. Now you can see the flames. Watch how quickly this goes. And you think, oh, well, if the tree goes on fire, let's just get out of the room. Now imagine your family are in this house. This is the downstairs living room, as we would call it, main room, family room, whatever you want to term it. But we're now 30 seconds in. Look at that smoke. Look at that black, ugly smoke, which could well be toxic depending on what's on fire. The heat is incredible. The fumes from that are very toxic, maybe. The smoke is coming down. You can't breathe. If you're already in that room, you're probably not capable now of finding your way out. In fact, you're probably going to die. Now that happened in less than a minute. Okay. One other little point to take out of that is that if a room begins to fill with smoke, you have to, don't walk to the door, crawl to the door. Get yourself down below that smoke. You try and if that stuff gets into your lungs, it will make breathing very, very difficult. So you do need to kind of get down and get out. But the main purpose of that video is the incredible speed that thing took. Within about 30 seconds, that room was a death trap. So very, very fast indeed. Now, that was a fire indoors, a relatively small fire. It began from a little spark, from that little flash, which most people don't even notice at the beginning of the video. You don't see the first flames until maybe about 10, 12 seconds in, but the actual fire started maybe at about 2 or 3 seconds whenever that little flash came. And that was just a small fire. You saw how quickly it got completely out of control. Now, maybe in your house you had a fire extinguisher. Maybe you would be trying to get a bucket of water from the kitchen or something like that. Quite pointless after 30 seconds. You're not going to be able to extinguish that blaze with a normal fire extinguisher or with a bucket of water or a pan full of water from the kitchen. It's gone way beyond that in 30 seconds. Now, at the minute, I can tell you, in this apartment that I live in, I can tell you where the fire extinguishers are. And by the time I would run and get them, it would be too late. Far too late. So fire is something that you have to treat with a considerable amount of respect. Let's see a bigger fire now. And let's see a fire at a major public event in the UK. Now, we're going to start, I think, if it's maybe about 3 minutes in, I'm not quite sure. If any of the guys like football, maybe the girls like football as well. Terribly sexist assumption of mine that only guys like football. I detest football, but that's just me. If any of you like football, we're going to see a football match in a town called Bradford. Happened quite a while ago, and it was I can't even remember the two teams. It's well, I don't even but the only football team I know is Manchester United. So so this is the football disaster. Now let's see if we can go in a little bit. There they all are having their football. And look at that stand, by the way. You see the stand there that we're looking at now. You see, there's a lot of people in it, an awful lot of people. Now, we want to be watching over to the right-hand side of the stand in a little while. Now, remember, these stands have a police presence there. They have first aiders there. They have emergency services. Anytime we have large public events like this, emergency services are on standby in case they are needed. Sometimes they're government emergency services. Sometimes they're volunteer emergency services. But there's always somebody there in case something goes wrong. And this will continue on. Everybody so far having a wonderful time. enjoying this football match, supporting whichever side they're supporting, watching the thing going on. Wonder if we could move forward just a little bit. That stand you're looking at now, eventually we'll be watching on the extreme right hand of it. Now, these stands, they're made of wood, a lot of them. A lot of the older ones are made of wood, and they're tiered, so you can stand on the tiers or sit on the tiers. And people often come in, and of course you'll bring a little snack. Everybody wants a snack while they're engaged watching. You know, you go to the cinema and you buy some snacks. You go to the football match, you bring some with you. And when you finish eating, well, some people are rather dirty. They don't take their rubbish away with them as they're supposed to. Dropped. And the rubbish drops down beneath those tiers that we spoke about, the wooden tiers, T-I-E-R-S. The rubbish drops down below them. And sometimes back in these days, smoking was very popular, and people used to just throw their cigarette butts away when they'd finished. They never really worried. And a cigarette butt, one of tiny little... Look at that big column of smoke going up there. And how long have we been watching this for? This isn't, we didn't speed this up. As soon as you get close enough to it, you're in severe danger. And that galloped in flames. So that was why I'm saying, if any of your clothes catch fire, you have to lie down and roll immediately. Okay, so those are two little videos that I think I wanted you to have a look at. So now we're going to move on to our actual fire safety. So we're going to talk a little bit about basic fire safety. We'll be analysing what fire is. We'll be looking at the dangers of it. How can we put it out? And one of the key things, how do we actually prevent it in the first place? Prevention better than cure. How do you stop fires happening in the first place? And if they do happen, how can you prepare for it? So one of the problems is when I start to share the screen, it does take some time for me to actually trying to get it to move on. There we are. Okay, so let's think a little bit about how serious is fire. Everybody seeing this okay? Is that correct, Leon?
Yes, please. Yes,
excellent, please. Excellent, OSHA. In the UK, well, these figures I'm quoting don't really matter, but I'd like you to be able to put a kind of comparison on them. So let's think about it. The UK has a population of about 65, 66 million people. I know if we talk, for example, about Nigeria, there's quite an argument about the population of Nigeria. I've seen figures as low as 140 million. I've seen figures as high as 220 million. A lot of sources will pick something a little bit narrower than that, round about 180 to 200 million. Why don't we just pick, for the sake of argument, 3 times more than the UK? So for the sake of a comparison, we'll think that whatever I say to you about the UK, if you multiply it by 3, that will let you see is Nigeria above or below the figure that I'm actually telling you. And then, of course, if it isn't, if it's higher, if it's lower than that kind of figure, you'll know that there's something else happening. So in the UK, there's about 35,000 fires per year, which are serious enough to involve attendance by the fire brigade. Now, there will be some small minor fires that, you can put out yourself, it does a little bit of damage, but you don't really need to call out the fire brigade. So we're going to ignore everything like that. We're just going to use fires serious enough to involve the fire brigade to come. These lead to about 30 fatalities every year. So if you had 90 fatalities from fire in Nigeria, you'd be about the same as the UK. But at least look at that, 2,500 injuries. Of course, there are always major fires, and we saw one of those a while ago. We saw the Bradford City Football Stadium fire in 1985. We had the King's Cross underground fire, and the underground in London, if any of you have ever visited London, you know the underground is a train. It's a kind of train network, but it's all beneath the streets of the city so that you can rapidly transit from one part of the city to another. But you go down tunnels, and the trains run through tunnels, and then there's platforms, all subterranean, all in tunnels beneath the city. And fires underground have quite a serious consequences, and it's much more difficult to deal with fires when they're underground. So we all had another one, the Buncefield Fuel Storage Depot in 2005. Buncefield was a major fuel storage depot. It had these big tanks, maybe 10, 20 meters high, filled with fuel, aviation fuel in this occasion. And when those catch fire, it can be really, really big trouble. In fact, when that one caught fire, it was the largest fire in Western Europe since World War II. The plume of smoke from that fire was visible from space, and it stretched over half the country. And they were telling people, because at that time they knew there was aviation fuel burning, and aviation fuel, when it burns at a low temperature, it can burn at a low or a high temperature. If it burns at a high temperature, that's fine, not a problem. If it burns at a low temperature, it can also be very toxic. And everybody was wondering, is that cloud of smoke actually toxic? The police were warning people, the news and the media were warning people, if you live in that cloud, please go indoors, close your windows. I was out driving that day. It was Sunday, thankfully, and I was driving from the north of England right down to the southern coast of England. And I had to drive through the cloud. And I'm in England, and I called up my friend over in Ireland, and he's always sitting at his computer doing something or another. And I said, could you just go on to your satellite views? Because he can basically look at satellite views from space and things like that. I said, yeah. Can you see that cloud? He says, oh, yes, I can track the whole thing. So I'm going to tell you exactly where I am now. So he says, right, I've got you. See exactly where you are. I know where the cloud is. I said, I need to drive through that cloud. I want you to get me the shortest way through from the north of it to the south of it, because the cloud was stretching in a big plume out to the, let me see, it was going out to the west, and I had to go through it. So he had to guide me through it that way. So toxic smoke coming off something, big problem. 2017, the Grenfell Tower block, London. Very tragic case there. One of these high-rise flats, we've all seen them, I see them in Lagos and things like that, apartment blocks. And this was high-rise apartment block, and on the outside of it, they just covered it with some cladding. Unfortunately, the cladding caught fire, and the entire apartment block went on fire. It's very difficult to evacuate places like that, because if you're above the fire when it starts, how do you get out? You have to find a way to get through it. And normally what happens is the building itself is reasonably fireproof. They realize that that building will resist fire for a certain length of time, and they hope the fire brigade will get there in time to put out the fire. So in many cases, they say to people, stay there, stay exactly where you are until the fire brigade come to rescue you. And that was the advice that was given when people were ringing 999, help, my building's on fire. They were told, stay where you are, the fire brigade are coming to rescue you. Everybody that listened to that advice died. They were burnt or suffocated. So they all died. So it was quite, and of course then there was a big investigation. Why did any idiot put cladding on a building that was flammable? And of course, it was just somebody thought, oh, it's cheaper to do this. We needn't bother doing that. So my favorite Nigerian saying applies here. It's all about the pepe, all about the pepe. And then, of course, we had 2019, we had the fire in Notre Dame, one of the most famous cathedrals, Notre Dame in Paris. And that was just a workman left a tool down in a place where he shouldn't. And there was some kind of fire there. And old cathedral like that we lost a lot of it. It's all been restored now, thank goodness. In the process of being restored, but terrible that it had to happen in the first place. So you can see that fire's very, very serious. Now, how bad is it in your particular country, be it Ghana, be it, I know Leon's from Ghana, I know a lot of you I can recognize by the names, some of you are from Nigeria, I see some Yoruba names in there and things like that. But wherever you are, think a little bit about the factors that might make you a little bit better or a little bit worse than the figures that we've quoted for the UK. Now, for example, one of the things that might make somebody better or worse would be what regulations are in force, building regulations, for example, and what is the compliance with them. It's all very well having wonderful regulations to say you should do this, you shouldn't do that. But if people ignore them, if they don't comply with them, then they're pretty much useless. So regulations and the compliance to the regulations will be vitally important. Are you building your buildings properly? Are you planning escape routes? Are you looking at the fact that whatever you build may have to undergo an evacuation? So a little bit of planning there. So regulations and compliance. Look at the levels of industrialization. If you have major cities, a fire in a major city is much more serious than a fire in a village in the middle of the forest. You're going to lose one hut. Well, okay, very sad, but hopefully the people have got out of the hut and you just let the hut go and you don't lose the whole village. So levels of industrialization and the response time of the fire brigade. If the fire brigade can get there within, say, 7 minutes, they may be able to knock that fire down very, very quickly indeed. If it's going to take them half an hour, mightn't be any point in them even coming. The whole thing could be gone by then. So these are some factors that you have to think about when you're thinking about fire. Are we going to be worse or better than that? Okay, so we've talked about fire. What exactly is fire? Oh, wrong way. I'll go the other way. Okay, so the basic principles of fire. We need 3 things to have a fire. 3 things. 2 of them, no good. 1 of them, no good. You need all 3. You need, of course, oxygen, heat, and fuel. So if I take something like this and I light it, the fuel is the gas coming in. No, it's flickering like mad here. I can see that we're running out of fuel. The heat came from a little spark to ignite the thing, and it's in the room filled with oxygen. And you'll see it went out, and it went out simply because the gas in the cylinder is now gone, so it ran out of fuel. We removed the fuel, we had oxygen, we had heat, but they dissipated. Well, the fire dissipated because it didn't have any fuel. If we take away the heat, you don't get a cold fire. If we take away the oxygen, that smothers the fire. So really, when we're thinking about how do we fight fire, the way to fight fire is to remove 1 of those 3 things. There we are, heat, fuel, and oxygen. And the heat usually will be the source of ignition. So there are 4 ways to extinguish a fire. The first thing is to cool it, remove the heat. And water is a very good thing about doing that. So very good way of cooling. The next thing is to smother the fire, remove the oxygen. You can put on foam that lays a blanket of foam on top of it. The oxygen beneath the foam will be burned up and consumed very quickly by the fire. No further oxygen can get down, so the fire dies. Or a fire blanket, that will do that. You can starve the fire, remove the fuel, like we did with this. Or you can have a chemical reaction and block fire itself. Combustion is a chemical reaction, and it can be blocked so that the oxygen and the fuel won't interact. It can be blocked by certain chemicals, halon or FM200. Now, halon's very rarely used today, very rarely indeed. It's used on occasion in military vehicles because it's not very good for the environment. But if you're being shot at and all of a sudden there's an explosion and fire in your armored vehicle, you don't worry too much about the environment. You want to sort the thing out. The other place you'll see a halon fire extinguisher is in airplanes. Next time you're flying from Niger or anywhere in West Africa and you're going somewhere else, when you're in the plane, just get up and wander down to one of the toilets. And when you're there, you'll usually, if you look around, it's usually at that little cross place in the aircraft to get from one side to the other, that cross space. The toilets are there, and have a look around and you'll usually see a fire extinguisher. Have a look and see if they're halon. That's where I very frequently see halon fire extinguishers, because a fire in an aircraft, very dangerous indeed, and halon is one of the quickest ways to kill that. It will knock that fire down really, really quickly. FM200 is very good at knocking down fires as well, and fortunately it's not as drastic as halon. I can remember once when I was in a papa in Lagos, Echo Boy, Omoroku, Omoboroku. So when I was in Lagos, I was in a building in a papa, and I'd been telling them that a door wasn't secure. And it would be okay for access control. If you had to open it to go through, it would register that somebody had opened it. But the locks, etc., they had magnetic locks on. And I said, no, they're not strong enough. Anybody could actually force a way through here. They argued with me, no, they couldn't. No, they couldn't. And I said, well, actually they could. I can guarantee you, but I'm not going to argue about it. So about 3 days later, I was doing consulting for this organization, and an auditor was brought in, and I had to take the auditor down, and to please the auditor they put AC on in the entire building. And the circuit boards had never had, because the building was not always inhabited, you only had 1 or 2 offices in use at any one time, they'd never had the AC on in the entire building at once. It overloaded the circuit boards, and one of them blew and caused a fire. So the fire started, and the FM200 kicked in. However, before the FM200 kicked in, there were several ladies, and they were trapped in the room that was on fire. A very big room, the one end of it was on fire. They actually were trying to get out. And this door, instead of any automatic door in a fire, should default to open to allow people to exit. However, this defaulted to lock, and it couldn't be opened. And I went over and, John, you'll never get in, you'll never get in. So the first thing I did was to say, anybody behind the door, stand back. I gave the door one swift kick. I didn't break the magnetic lock. The magnetic lock held. The hinges in the door, boom, flew off, leaving the thing behind. The door was so flimsy, it was useless. The ladies then ran out screaming, and even though they were Nigerian, they were all white. Why were they white, including their clothes? Because of the FM200, almost like a fine white powder. It looked to me just like you'd taken bags of chalk dust, white chalk, and thrown it all over them. Wham! And that was the FM200. But it killed that fire very rapidly indeed. So there are a couple of, they are the 4 major ways that you fight a fire. You cool it down, you smother it, you starve it, or you use some chemical reaction that blocks the combustion. Now let's think of 1 or 2 of those actual things. Let's think of smothering the fire. Now in a kitchen, you'll often see a fire blanket. This is an old one. I have a proper fire blanket in my kitchen now, but this is an old one. And as you can see, look at it, it's filthy. It's been used. So that's why I just keep it around for demonstrations and things like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to step back a little bit. And the idea of a fire blanket is to put it over. You stretch it over whatever's burning. Now, I'm going to do this, and I want you to tell me, raise your hand if, and Leo, I won't be able to see the people who raise their hand because I have to look at my slides, but Leon will tell me if anybody is going to see what I do wrong. I'm going to do something very, very wrong. And I want somebody to tell me what it is, stop me and tell me. Here I am approaching to put it over the fire. What am I doing wrong? Leon, has anybody spotted what I've done wrong?
Please kindly raise up your hand, to answer the question.
Hello, please. Can you do it again? Can it be repeated?
Okay.
What I'm doing right now is very wrong.
We have Engineer Ahmed raising up his hand, so you can unmute yourself. Engineer Ahmed, unmute yourself and answer.
The cloth should be widely open, not squeezed above the fire.
Let's pretend it's widely open. There's something else which is going to cause a big problem.
If the cloth is not widely opened and not raising it up high, because the air will build in. And when you open it widely and not raising it up, you will now contract the air, and then now you will now smoothen the pressure of the fire.
You're absolutely right, but there's something else that will happen before that.
Mr. Emmanuel Timilei also raised up his hand, so you can unmute yourself, Mr. Emmanuel Timilei.
Well, hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, please.
So with my own opinion, I think doing that, you are moving close to the fire. I think you can just throw that on it.
Well, if I throw it and I miss, I'm in trouble.
You like what I'm trying to say, you have to open your hands wide, raise them up, then I think
you're getting close to what I'm doing wrong, yes, but look at my hands and tell me what is going to happen when I try.
Okay, we have Madam Osinachi. Madam Osinachi, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, what is doing wrong is the hand is facing the fire, and
yes.
The hand is facing the fire. The way he's holding the blanket is not the way he's supposed to hold the blanket.
Correct. Very well done indeed. I will approach the fire like this, and the first thing that happens is my hand will be burned and I will drop the blanket and I will have damaged my hand. So you will notice now that on this side of the blanket there's a tag, and here is another tag. And the idea is that I will have the blanket like this. Now, you can see the way I'm holding that tag now. And I will have the blanket with my covering my hands. And now I can approach like that and put it over. So the blanket will always be between the fire and me. It will always be between the fire and me. Well done. So that's the whole purpose of those tags. And whenever that blanket is folded properly and put and hung up on the wall, the two tags hang down so that I can run over, grab the tags and pull the thing out. So that's how you will smother the fire by using a fire blanket. And usually these are things that maybe you're frying something, or you have food in a pot on the oven or on a fire, and That's what the fire blanket is for, to cover it. Now, let's think of something else. Let's think about starving the fire. Now, I know Nigeria has a lot of virgin forest there, and your climate is kind of, you don't really get forest fires. However, in certain other places, you have lots of forest and it can be very dry. And sometimes you get a forest fire. Places in certain of the southern states in America, they could have forest fires. Even some of the kind of Midwest and the ones a little bit further north can get dry as well during certain summers. And all of a sudden the forest goes on fire. And of course the fire begins to spread. One tree is on fire and the heat suddenly, or a spark, hits the next tree. And next minute there's a whole fire moving. And it moves in the direction of the wind. So one of the things is always to get upwind of the thing, and then the fire's moving away from you. Once the tree has burned, there's no more fuel. But by that time, all the other trees downwind, they've gone and taken fire. So one way to stop the forest fire is to have what they call a fire break. And in the fire break, they actually clear an area in front of the fire. They chop down all the trees. They may even have a controlled fire that they can burn the trees and put the fire out before the major fire gets there. And then when it arrives there, all it's got is burnt ground and burnt wood. It has no fuel. Another way the fire goes out, and this has to be quite fortuitous, if the wind suddenly reverses 180 degrees and it blows the fire back upon itself, a fire can't move back over the ground that it's already covered, simply because it's already burnt all the fuel there. So it can't go back that way. So if the wind changes direction, 180 degrees, the fire will basically blow itself out very quickly indeed. Okay, and now we see a fire extinguisher down there. We see a fire blanket down there. We see that guy's actually a forest firefighter, and he's getting ready to clear some stuff away. And then we have the little molecules there of the chemical reaction to block that chemical reaction. So there are 5 basic types of fire. You have Class A fires that involve, now by the way, I think Leon can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you'd all be given copies of these slides. So, you know, don't just be having to scribble down everything I say or remember every single word here, because you will be able to get these slides. I don't know how soon they send them out, but they do come fairly swiftly after this, I believe. So Class A fire will involve solid materials, and most of the fires that we experience in our life are Class A fires. Wood, paper, cloth, furniture, anything like that. Class B fires involve liquids or liquefied solids. So it could be an oil fire. Fat can go on fire. Paint can go on fire. Fireproof paint is a wonderful invention, saved quite a number of lives, stopped quite a number of fires spreading. So flammable paint, on the other hand, can be really dangerous. So Class B fires involve liquid. We can subdivide those into 2 different kinds because it can be important. You have liquids that are soluble in water, and then you have liquids that are a bit harder to put out because they're not soluble in water. They float on the top, petrol and oil. So that's one of the reasons why if you come along with a hose spurting water, you can't put out an oil fire floating on water. The water is beneath the oil. You're spraying down, and all that happens is you put more water on and the oil just gets up to the top. And in fact, the more water you put, the more you spread the fire, because you're just creating more water for the oil to spread out over. Interesting thing about petrol, you know, petrol is not very flammable. Everybody thinks, of course it is. Sure, you have petrol and you like anything near it, boom, the whole thing goes up. Of course, it's incredibly flammable. No, it's not. It's not very flammable at all. What is flammable? You go near petrol, you can smell it. You spill some petrol in your clothes, even wash your clothes, get into the shower, scrub yourself 2 or 3 times, and tomorrow put those clothes on, sniff them, you can still smell the petrol. Petrol is very volatile. Petrol and oils, you can smell them. And that's because of the fumes that are coming off. Now, if you could take an ultra-fast camera and I walk up to some petrol on the ground and I strike a match and throw it at it, very dangerous thing to do. What actually happens is that as the match approaches the petrol, it doesn't set the petrol on fire. The fumes above the petrol go on fire. If the match itself could somehow be got past those fumes really lightning quick and be put straight into the petrol, if a lit match was straight in the petrol, it would extinguish. Why? There's no oxygen. There's the petrol, big pool of petrol. Wham, we stick the match in the middle of it. Fire. Can't do it. What's actually burning is not the petrol, it's the fumes on top of it. And of course, that gets worse because as the fumes burn, they heat up the petrol beneath it. And that makes it give off even more fumes. So that's just an interesting thing about petrol, and it's why we don't use water to knock out petrol fires. And it's why you shouldn't really see water fire extinguishers around petrol pumps. They're not much use. In fact, they're probably going to spread the fire. Another kind of fire is a gas. This was like butane, this thing filled with butane. Wonder, can we? Oh, there we are. Yes, we've got a wee bit more. So this is filled with butane. So we've got gas, butane, propane, whatever. So they're class C fire. You would often come across these in pipes in a building and infrastructure. You would often come across them in cylinders, in gas cylinders. And gas cylinders are incredibly dangerous because of the pressure that they're under. If you're doing a health and safety audit and you see a gas cylinder standing upright, it should have a chain around it. And if you really want to, when I audit health and safety, the one way to really annoy me is to let me see an upright cylinder that doesn't have a chain around it. If that thing falls over and the neck hits anything, it will take off, wham, like a torpedo. It will go straight through a wall. If you're standing in front of it, it will go straight through you because of the high pressure. 300 bar, 300 times atmospheric pressure, some of those cylinders are at. The other problem is if they explode, wow, it's like a bomb going off. So if you have any of those cylinders in the building, it's important that the fire brigade or any fire responders know about them. Furthermore, even if they extinguish the fire and the building itself is now not on fire anymore, those cylinders are still at incredibly high temperatures. They're in that building, and even within 24 hours later, they can explode. So what would happen is the fire brigade would come, spray water in the building, do whatever, put the fire out, and then they surround the building, and nobody is allowed into the building for 24 hours in case those cylinders suddenly explode. Another kind of fire is a metal. Metal can go on fire. Aluminium can go on fire. Magnesium, wow, burns at an incredibly high temperature. Most schoolboys doing chemistry, I can remember way back, I must have been maybe 11 or 12 years of age, my first year in secondary school. And the teacher, he gets his Petri dish out, he puts a tiny, tiny little bit of magnesium on it, and he lights it, bang, wow, incredible fire. And class F are oils and fats at very high temperatures. Not that you would get in your ordinary kitchen in your home if you're making your jollof rice. No, these are oils and fats at incredibly high temperatures, like a big commercial kitchen where you're having to cook for maybe 200 people, some big event like that. So these are the different types of fire. And we've got a little summary here, which again, you got your ABCD electrical fires, And again, you wouldn't put water on an electrical fire. You could short circuit the whole building. The water itself, you could spread the electricity around and maybe injure somebody or cause more problems somewhere else. And again, we've got our water, foam, dry powder, special dry powder, CO2 gas, wet chemicals. And we've got a little table there that you can have a look at and study whenever you get your slides. But it is just very important to use the correct type of fire. Now, what would happen if you did use the wrong thing? So think of a piece of machinery, an electric saw, a television monitor, anything like that. So a fuse box, a petrol spill, a frying pan or deep fat fire in the kitchen, anything like that. So using the wrong kind of fire can cause a problem. You can cause short circuits. You can bring down an electrical circuit altogether. Sometimes even if the fire is in one place and behind it there's an electrical panel and you spray water in the fire, you're going to hit the electrical panel and bang, you could take the entire building out. You could knock the electricity off. You could cause more fires elsewhere. It would be a very bad idea. Same with televisions or monitors, fuse box. A petrol spill, we've already said, put water in the petrol, wham, you're going to spread that fire. Frying pan or deep fat fire in the kitchen, again, if you try to use water there, the fat's going to go everywhere. You try throwing water in that and bang, you're going to get burning, scalding fat everywhere. So what are some of the causes of fire? Malicious. You sometimes get people coming out and deliberately starting them for whatever reason. Faulty fuel supplies, using the wrong kind of fuel. Faulty appliances or equipment. Misuse of equipment. The equipment might be okay, it might be safe, but you're using it wrongly. Deep fat fryers. I'm sure there are plenty of deep fat fryers in Nigeria, but I must admit I've never seen them. I have an apartment in Awoyaya in Lagos out the Lake Epe Expressway, and I know in our apartment we don't have any deep fat fryers. Careless handling of hot materials. Putting materials too close to heat sources. Yes, again, right back when I was a boy, the only heating in our houses was an open fire. We didn't have central heating in those days. So we had these open fires, and you would maybe come in out of the rain and your clothes are soaking wet. So you have to change into dry clothes, and you have to say, well, you know, I need to dry my clothes here because I'm going to be needing them tomorrow. So you maybe hang them up in front of the fire. So you put them over the back of a chair and you put it in front of the fire. And sometimes people would put it too close and you get a fire. And you would have other causes not listed above. We've got an actual breakdown for one particular year in the UK. And in that particular year, these fires, remember we were talking about fires that involved the fire brigade, 43% were malicious. So arson was quite a significant factor. Then you had misuse of equipment, and faulty appliances were about 12 to 15% each. And it's why I always get a little bit annoyed. One of the things I always used to notice in Nigeria when I first went there, I first went to Nigeria about 20 years ago, near 22 now, but people would have their mobile phones, of course. Most Nigerians had about 6 mobile phones in those days, one for each network, or I used to say one for the wife, one for the mistress, one for the boss, one for your friends, and 2 others for whatever other reason you wanted. And they would have all these phones. And of course, when it came to chargers, they had to charge the phone. And you would look around and you would see sometimes the power points were half hanging off the wall and you could stick your fingers in behind them. Very dangerous situation. And other times they didn't actually have the 3-pin plug. They maybe only had 2, and they cut the plug off, spread the wires, strip the wires, and then they would get a pencil and just poke the wires in. So you would have like 2 bare wires shoved in to the thing on the wall. And I always used to think that's a recipe for disaster. Absolutely. Thank God it's only low voltage. Only drawing a low voltage, a low load, because it's only a mobile phone. But if it would have been anything else. And of course, today we have what's called PAT testing, where you're testing the electrical integrity of some device. And we don't have plugs that we screw on anymore in the UK. When you buy a device, it comes with a molded plug already in it. So there's nothing for you to have loose wires about or anything like that. And if you bend the wire, so your PAT testing doesn't just check the device to make sure that it's earthed properly. The PAT testing, and that's not just to prevent you from electrocution, that's also to prevent fires. And if you bend the leads, if you bend the electrical leads, you can actually stretch them with the bend, and you can break a wire or expose a wire. So you have to be very careful about that. So all of these can be causes of fire. Okay, so some basic fire safety. What do you do when a fire is detected? Well, the first thing is you have, and you might think, oh, everybody knows what to do. Do they indeed? No, they don't. They panic. Did you see a lot of people who knew exactly what to do in the Bradford Fire Stadium? Not really. So you raise the alarm. Who do you raise? Who raises it? And how do you raise it? Well, very often, the first person who discovers the fire has to raise the alarm. That's the key thing. They can do it by shouting. They can do it by finding a bell. They can do it by one of these break glass units where you go and you smash the glass and ding, 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 a siren or a bell or something like that goes off. So that raises the alarm. And then everybody has to make a choice. It's fight or flight. Which do you do? Do you fight the fire or do you evacuate? Now, a lot of that is going to depend on certain factors. Key things we have to bear in mind, most people are not trained how to properly fight a fire. You may think, well, that's obvious. No, it isn't. And if you have not received specific training, you are not capable of fighting a fire effectively. So it's a job for the fire brigade or the emergency services. Now, different countries, different facilities, different cultures have different approaches to that question. And we're going to consider some of these cases, but ultimately, you have to follow the instructions and the guidance given to you by the organization. So whatever the organization says you have to do, that's exactly what you have to do. So we'll decide, first of all, when to fight the fire. When you're part of a team in your facility and your job is to fight that fire, you should have been trained. You should have been told where the firefighting equipment is. So if that's your job, then do your job and you fight the fire. You'll have received the training, you'll have the equipment, you should fight the fire. Other people who are not trained, or who don't have the equipment, should get out of your way. Or they can't help you. They're not trained to help you. They don't have the equipment to help you. The only thing they can do is either put themselves in danger, which is a distraction for you, because you then have to rescue them, or else they can get in your way and stop you from effectively fighting the fire. So really, the best thing they can do to help you is to get away. The other time you fight the fire is when you have no choice, when the fire is between you and the exit. And that's why most buildings will have more than one exit point. You can get out that way, or you can get out that way. It's unlikely that you would be in a position where a fire would start over there and over here at exactly the same time. So if the fire's that way, try and go, and I am blocked in and I have no choice that I will fight that fire. And that brings me to a wonderful question I always ask, and you'll always get a very different answer to this. And it's an answer that doesn't seem very natural. What is the point of a fire extinguisher? Sounds like a stupid question, doesn't it? crazy white man asking that for. What is Colo-Weebo? That's what they call me in Niger, Colo-Weebo, crazy white man. And it's because I do things, you know, that they think are crazy, but for an Irishman are second nature. So, you know, what is the purpose of a fire extinguisher? And you'd think, sure, the name tells you that. It's a fire and it's an extinguisher. The job of the fire extinguisher is to extinguish the fire. Wrong. Totally wrong. If we think about where fire extinguishers should be positioned, they should always be positioned beside an emergency exit and along emergency routes. And the purpose of a fire extinguisher is to protect the fire exit and the emergency route. To keep them people can get out of the building. You can always build another building. So big deal. Yeah, it's inconvenient. It's all of this. It's terrible, but you know, it's not worth one human life. So they need to protect, fire extinguishers to protect the fire exits. And most people don't really even know how to use a fire extinguisher. Now, it's all very well, send it off. Are you directing it at the base of the fire? And quite often, especially with the ladies, and I'm sorry if some interpret this as a sexist comment, but if you haven't, and it happens with the guys as well, if you set a fire extinguisher off for the first time, they kind of go off with a big noise, and a lot of people drop them and go, oh! Because they hadn't expected it. So one of the things you do if you're trained to fight fires is you're actually given a fire extinguisher, they light a small fire and they get you to do it. Sometimes people drop the things. So you do need a little bit of training. The other thing is, if you have used half the fire extinguisher, you'll know that by how, you know, you'll suddenly see, you'll feel the fire getting an awful lot lighter. Indeed, are not very big. So you'll feel the thing getting lighter. And also you may see that instead of a strong stream of, say, water or of foam or of gas, you'll see it kind of drooping off a little bit. Not quite as much force there, not as much material coming out, be it water, gas, whatever. And if it's about half empty and that fire is not almost visibly out, you've stayed there too long. You're in severe danger. Get out. Don't wait to finish the fire extinguisher. Get out. So, another big issue, and you saw this in both videos right back at the beginning there, especially the first one, was smoke. The first video we saw, the little Christmas tree video, was in an enclosed space, a room, pretty much like the one I'm sitting in now at the minute. The second one was in almost the open air. The stadium you're sitting in, yes, the tiers, the seats, the seating, the stand, was covered. But look at the three sides of it were completely open. So we'll call it open air. So while you're out of doors, smoke is usually not so much of a danger, because you saw most of that black smoke, it went up the top of the stand, curled round the edges and then went up. So you didn't see the people in the field or even near to the fire getting affected by the smoke. You did see the flames and the heat affecting them, but you didn't see anybody really getting affected by the smoke because it was going away from them, it was going up. But when it's confined in a building, it's totally lethal. The hot air rises carrying the smoke up through the building. So the smoke will spread even before the flames. And as soon as you stop it from moving up, it moves horizontally. You saw in the Christmas tree, the smoke went up, but it was only able to go up 2 or 3 feet, and then it hit the ceiling in the room, and then it spread out. And then as it kept building up there, it gradually came down and down and down and down. Smoke is a killer. It suffocates you. It gets in your lungs. Even if you survive the fire and they take you to hospital, your lungs can be so clogged up that you can still die. hours after they have rescued you from the fire, and you haven't received one burn, not one, and it can still kill you. So they have to keep you on pure oxygen and assist your breathing and relaxation, all kinds of things like that. So smoke is, in fact, very few people are killed by fire. People killed in a fire are almost certainly, the vast majority of them are killed first by smoke. The body burns afterwards, but they're dead before the flames get to them. The smoke has suffocated them to death. So smoke is a killer. And that smoke's always going to go upwards. So spread of fire. The four major mechanisms that spread fire are convection, conduction, excuse me, radiation, and direct burning. I'm going to have to take a little sip of my, just to keep the throat lubricated. I always drink some kind of water. I haven't drunk water in about, I stopped drinking water now, so that's 56 years I haven't drunk water in. I'm 66 now. So mechanisms of heat transfer there. So you can see that it can be through evaporation, through convection, through radiation, induction. All these mechanisms, and heat, of course, you need to understand, simply because heat is one of the things that's part of a heat can be a hard thing to take away. But unfortunately, water is not suitable for every kind of fire, as we have actually heard. Couple of golden rules I forgot to actually say, and I just made a little note here to tell them. But couple of golden rules when you're talking about that fight or flight, whether you should run from the fire and evacuate, or whether you... So couple of rules override everything else. First thing, remember, even a spread and grow much more rapidly than you can expect. You saw that in our first video. Is never let the fire get behind you. Never. That way you can be trapped. Always keep an exit behind you and the fire in front of you to fight it. If you're not trying to fight it, keep the fire behind you and go for it. But don't get boxed in. So never get trapped by the fire. People die from smoke inhalation than are burned to death. So be aware of smoke and also fumes. And if you've used half the contents of the fire extinguisher and the fire is not almost out, it's time to go. Fires can spring back to a great blaze very fast indeed. Another thing is, have a room that's closed. Don't just open the door. It's the rest of the building's on fire. That room could be at a very high temperature. The minute you open the door, you've let a lot of air in, and wham! You see people opening a door, and next minute, boom, a fireball comes straight out in their face. In fact, what a lot of people will do before they go up, they don't even grab the handle of the door, because then you've burnt the palm of your hand that you might need to do something to open something else with. So you don't do it that way. You walk up to the door, and you use the back of your hand, and you touch the door with the back of your hand. Feeling really warm, you don't open that door. There's a fire on the other side, or it's at such a temperature that that fire could ignite and cause a fireball. So you really have to do it. So how do you spread fire, or how do you contain it? You have to compartmentalize. A compartment is a part of the building that's separated from the rest by walls and floor. Fire doors as well. Now, a fire door will be rated usually, and they'll say, right, it might be of wood, but it is specially treated. And they'll have a rating usually between something like 25, 35 minutes, something like that, depending on where in the world you are and the treatment and if it's all worked well and it's brand new. And they'll hold the fire back for a certain length of time. The other thing is, if you look at the actual doors themselves, sometimes see it looks like a plastic strip. And the idea of that strip is that strip expands and it creates a seal around the door, not so the flames don't get through, but so the smoke doesn't get through and choke you. So they're important as well. So once you start to compartmentalize, you can slow down drastically the spread of any fire and the spread of any smoke. The difficulty is that buildings aren't really designed to be completely compartmentalized, because if it's an office, you have to move from your office to somebody. You have to bring the mail around the building. Other facilities have to go around the building. We have to run cables around the building because we'll have maybe an IT or a server room. They'll have their laptops and everything. And we might have to run wires in the system around the whole building. So what happens if the fire runs down? So there's a ventilation system. And the ventilation system is meant to blow air through the whole building so that you don't suffocate. But the minute there's a fire, what do you think happens? The ventilation system's blowing smoke through the building. So one of the first things that happens when the fire alarm goes is the ventilation system has to be cut. You should be evacuating anyway, so we don't need to pump more air into the building. That's only giving oxygen to the fire. So the ventilation immediately. So you have to be careful. Access to both people and essential services and utilities. Cables, pipes, ventilation, anything like that. Now, fire doors are something that people don't have enough respect for. They really don't. The first thing is a fire door should always open outwards. And why is that? Many of us are running for and the door opens in and you're panicking and you're behind me. I have to push back 20 of you before I can pull the door towards me. So that's not very good. What's meant to be is I run to that door, and you can see that in our example here. If I can't manage to push it down, you guys behind me are going to push me into that bar, and my body is going to press it down and out will go. Now, of course, that means that the other side of the door has to be clear. I have seen idiots parking cars on the other side of the fire door. Oh, if there's a fire, I'll move it. Well, might take a while to find you. Might take you a while to come and do it. Perhaps you're one of the people trapped in the building, so how the heck is it going to get moved? And what you could be doing is killing people. There was a very famous case in Northern Ireland, where I live, in the northern part of Ireland, the bit that the British control, unfortunately. Whenever we are, we have nightclubs like they do in Lagos. And of course, all the guys and all the girls, they all like to go and party and dance and drink the kai-kai and go and dance with the girls. And usually the nightclubs will charge a fee to get in. So what very often happens is, let's say there were 5 guys, 5 of us, go down. Great. Now, we may have to pay 10 fees to get everybody in. The entrance fee 10 times. So what sometimes people do, a little bit naughty, but they do, we go up and everybody says, myself and my wife, they'll give us Pepe, and we will buy 1 ticket each, 1 for me, 1 for my wife. And we So we go into the nightclub, and of course nightclubs are nice and dark so that you can dance and you can watch all these flashing lights and things like that. And, you know, there's lots of dark corners and everything like that. And I sneak over to the open, and the other 8 people, or wives, they're waiting on the other side of the fire door to creep in. So basically 2 of us have paid, but there's now 10 of us all in for the price of 2. That happening, one nightclub in Northern Ireland, this was happening quite a lot, and they said, we're going to stop that. Down a big chain, and they chained the fire doors and they put a padlock on it. And there was a fire. And everybody ran the fire door, and there were about 40 people in that corner trying to get through the door. It was padlocked shut. And many people, dozens of people died. Well, it wasn't deliberate, so they couldn't call it murder, but it was the next best thing. It's what they call manslaughter. And very hefty jail sentences were given out to the owners of the nightclub who ordered that door locked like that. It's also the same if you, some people think it's great fun. I'll get a fire extinguisher and I'll spray it all over my friend here. That's interfering with life-saving equipment. And that can be a significant jail sentence. It's a criminal offence to interfere with any equipment that could be used to save a human life. Somebody could die because of your stupidity. So fire doors, something you need to take quite a bit of care of. Now, in order to take any action, the fire must first be detected. There are different ways of detecting it. We have smoke detectors. We have heat detectors. People normally just see the thing. And in what way can the alarm electronic bell or just a big bell that you ring with your hand, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling, ding-a-ling? That's okay. You can do it any way like that at all. So once you've raised the alarm, you should then summon the emergency services. We'll talk about that a little bit later. However, all of these fire detection systems need to be maintained because you never know when you're going to need them. So you should do regular tests. Difficulty about tests is if you always do a test, people think, oh, it's just a test. No. How do they know when it's a test and when it's the real thing? Well, unless you have been told, hey, guess what? We're going to do a test at 11 o'clock. In about half an hour, we're going to have a test. Then that's okay. You can ignore it. And there should be an announcement, this is just a test or something like that. If you don't get that, then when the alarm goes, you must assume this is the real thing. Now, it may be an unscheduled test to see if you'll react or not, but you have to treat it as if it is a genuine fire and you must evacuate. Now, what are the key issues in evacuation? When you start to leave, you have to plan a safe route. And that route has to be free from obstruction. Problem. So you have to that it remains lit in the event of a power cut, which is why we have signs showing you what way to go. We have emergency lighting, which even if I cut the power, emergency lighting will come on. So if there's no natural lighting around, or if it's nighttime, their way out of the building. And I can tell you there's a big one of these, if you've been around Marina in Lagos, you'll see some of these big tall buildings around there. One of them, all the people who came used to park in the back, and they would park their car around the back right on one of the fire took the senior management team of the organization. I said, let's route. Here, oh, we'll have to have all these moved and blah, blah. Of course, they cleared it days and then everybody started parking there again. So I'd done my best, but force them to do it. And you have to go to a safe area, a muster. Now, what is a safe muster point? The in Marino across the road, people stop the across. If it can brutal on some occasions. So I thought be better on the side street that direction. So distance from the building. There's no point if the wall of the building's going to fall on top of you. If the flames are going to leap over to the building beside you that you're standing on, no point in having it. It's not far enough away. Next thing is, how do you know everybody's at the muster point? Will you have a log when people sign into the building and then they sign out again? You'll have a log and somebody has to take that log to the muster point and tick everybody off. But you know when that happens, there's always somebody who says, I'm only going out for a few minutes. Or they go out a different exit. And you've got people coming in one exit and going out for another. Or it's a building open to the public where you don't log in and log out. So you don't always have a register of who is in the building. So you have to think. Point. And the emergency service, shouldn't they ask in this country, in somebody's building, just go to see if anybody's. If you've left the building without telling anybody and you're sitting down in the pub drinking and the emergency services arrive and everybody says, he's still, somebody could be going in there and lose their life while you're sitting down in the pub drinking your kai-kai wondering, I wonder what's going on up there. There are ways to deal with that. We'll talk about that. So let's consider some other special cases for evacuation. What happens if you've disabled staff or visitors? How are you going to get the disabled people out? Will you get them down the stairs, or what exactly can you do? You have visitors who don't speak your language. That can be a big problem. I only speak 3 languages, English, Irish, and rubbish. But, of course, if you've got visitors who don't speak your language, that's why we have signs that pictograms. They don't use words in any language. They use little symbols, which, unless you're a complete moo-moo, total idiot, you should be able to understand. Or little green running man and an arrow, run this way. Hopefully you'd figure out, yes, I need to get out of here. Oh, I'll run that way. You should actually just walk quickly without, but you know, they use a running man to let you know it is urgent that you go that way, please. Other people will say, right, we have a foreigner, an Owibo maybe, who doesn't speak our language. He doesn't know our country. It's their first time fresh fish. And what we give mind. And in that case, the guide will take them where they need to go in the event of an emergency. Also, another way, you can let people know their evacuation routes, mark them clearly, but look at the little plan. You could have a little fire plan, a little evacuation plan. You have all seen one of those, I'd be fairly certain. And I see them worked in 26 different countries, and the client always puts me in a hotel. And when you walk into a hotel, I don't care whether it's in Lagos or in America, whether it's in Saudi or Kuwait or anywhere like that, or the Far East, it doesn't matter. All the hotel rooms will have that on the back of the door, a fire exit. route that shows me where to go. And I go in and I'm actually one of these people who will have a look at the back of the door. Okay, where's my nearest fire exit? Down the end of that one up there. Okay, now I'm happy. We also asked about you have a public access building and many people are in every. That's about those emergency. What are the cases? Who is done first and how is it done? And how are the emergency services involved? Now, one of the first things to do is to phone the fire brigade, to phone the emergency services. And you may think, well, that's dead simple. Well, anybody who's worked with the emergency services, and I have to audit some of these emergency services, I would audit the fire brigade in the UK and in other places as well. And if it's not a national body, then it will be a private fire brigade belonging to a company or something like that. So you have to kind of keep an eye on these things. But every one of them will tell you horror stories. So our buildings are, come quick, and they hang up. You're sitting. Which is why in most of Europe and as many other places over the world as it can happen, they all do this. They try and trace that call. If I ring the fire brigade, my telephone number comes up and my location is immediately tracked. Even if I suddenly am cut off, they're going to say, right, that was in such and such a town, that was in such and such a building. That's the address. Get the fire brigade there quick. So you get a point. We've all done exactly what we should do. We have evacuated properly. So we all evacuate, and after 10 minutes, there's no fire brigade. And somebody's looking and they're saying, did you phone the fire brigade? And the person you ask says, no, I thought you were phoning the fire brigade. Or I'm not phoning the fire brigade. What about you? Did you phone the fire brigade? And you go around 20 or 30 people and nobody's phoned the fire brigade because everybody thought somebody else was doing it. So one of the things you need to do is to specify, right, and the fire brigade would rather get 10 calls about the same fire as miss one call and not get there. So what I advise is that your receptionist, the people at the security people or a receptionist or whoever's at the front desk of your building, a little piece of card laminated with some instructions on it. Now everybody thinks, well, everybody knows the fire brigade number. When you panic, you don't know what people will know. Have it written down. In the event of fire, ring this number, 999 119. Whatever it is in your part of the world, ring this number. Write it down. Then, this is the name of the building. Simple stuff. It costs only a few naira to do it, and it can save lives and time, and it can save buildings, and it can save so much bother. So make sure not one person, in case they're off sick, but many people have a card like that. So the people at the front entrance, the back entrance, 2 side entrances, 4 phone calls will all go to the fire brigade. So somebody will get there. Now, the other thing you can do is you can appoint a fire marshal. Fire marshals are people who are trained. It's part of your emergency plan. They are the people who must react in the event of a fire. Sometimes they can be trained to fight the fire, but they do have more important duties. Depending on exactly how you split up your organization, could be to check the building's clear when there's an evacuation. The way you do that is each fire marshal has a certain area under their control. And pass. And that way he's driving anybody before him out of the building. And if each fire marshal area to clear, you can sweep the building clear relatively quickly. This is probably your most practical solution if you don't have a who's coming in and out of the building. The fire marshal should check all personnel are accounted for. The fire marshal, as part of the mitigation, excuse me, should do regular testing of alarm emergency fighting equipment. Ensure fire exits kept clear at all times. Major disciplinary offence to block a fire exit. Assessments, they can do fire inspections. They are the people who summon the emergency services, and some of them at least should be trained first aiders. So when the fire brigade actually get there, they're going to want some information. So they might want to know, does anybody have a plan of the building so we know where to go? So perhaps you have what they call a grab bag or an emergency bag or a bug out bag. It's a little bag with emergency equipment in it, communication equipment, watches, radios, things like that. Plans, what to do in the event of an emergency, who to call, all sorts of stuff like that. You may want to put in building plans, particularly the layout of the ventilation and basic access and availability of the water, any very emergency there. Escape exits, fire doors, fire refuge. A fire refuge is if you get trapped, if you can't evacuate somebody, maybe they're ill, maybe they're disabled, you can go into a refuge where somebody can get to you and rescue you. It's you should always get out, but if it is not practical, you head for a fire. Plan should contain the locations of signs and notices. Maybe you get some contractor coming in to remodel an area and they take down some key fire sign notices and they don't put them up again. Well, you need to know, oh, look, there's contain the location of alarms, detectors, call points, the locations and the types of firefighting equipment. That's also important whenever you get that serviced. So someone can come in and they can say, all right, you have 32 fire extinguishers. I've only serviced 30. There's 2 more I've missed somewhere. Where are they? You can find them, make sure they're serviced. And the locations of emergency lighting. So that's all part of your fire plan. Now, these all need to be checked regularly. And by the way, you don't just check the fire panel. The fire panel can be working, but the call points might not be working. So what you should do is check the fire panel maybe once every 6 months. Each call point should be checked, not at the same time or you'll be running around all day checking them. Every call point, I have 30 a week, and another thing to do. Evacuations, inspections for and the presence of equipment. So check, and they should be in a for the truthful time and evacuation. When was the last time they did an unmanned evacuation? What about fire inspection? Or when was the last time you had a false alarm? When was the last time you had any sort of fire? When was the last time you had a fire door blocked? Or a fire extinguisher set off by accident or stupidity? These things can all start very simple, but have tragic consequences. When you did an evacuation last time, did anybody time it? How long did it take? Was there a target time? Did you meet that target time? So those are all kind of ways that you can look at and evaluate how you're doing. Now, of course, the key thing in health and safety, if you get this right, you'll have a relatively safe, inherently more dangerous than the risk assessment. Risk is the key to health and safety. Bad risk assessments, I don't care about the rest of your system, you're in big trouble. So fire risk assessments are one type of risk assessment that you have to do. And there are 5 stages really. You can split these up into sub-stages and make it 6. I know some people say, oh, the 6 stages, and they teach the 6 stages. Some people call it 5. Doesn't really matter as long as you're following the same process. The first thing is identify and record any fire hazards. And we're getting in standard thing, I'm sure, in your risk assessment. Not sure if you're going to do it or if you've already done it, but you will do risk assessment. And you have to know the difference between a hazard and a risk. So the first thing is, let's identify and record any fire hazards. Let's identify and record locations and persons to be risk and others, those disabled persons, for example, people in a wheelchair, people who are on crutches, who are not as mobile as others. Also, vulnerable people could be a young person who's not familiar with the building. Could be a new start. I just started yesterday. I have no idea about this building. I get lost in it all the time. I don't know where the fire exits are or anything like that. So for a while, they're going to be more vulnerable. So like all risk assessments, we now evaluate and record the risks. We write it down. If it isn't written, you get it. Ways of doing your classification. It's not my job to tell you what they should be, but you will identify that risk and you'll come to some kind of quantifiable value and say, well, this is low and accepted, or it's medium, we need to do a bit more just to bring that down, or wait a minute, this is high. We have to address this immediately. You prepare, record and execute an action plan to reduce those risks as low as is practicable. Let's take our second video that we saw was a while ago. The Bradford football fire, the stadium football fire. That was a build-up of rubbish beneath the stand. The same thing in that we talked about the London Underground fire, the King's Cross Underground fire. Moving stairways, the escalators, flames and smoke killed a lot there because it was underground. This tunnels filled with smoke killed a lot of people. Where people, fire never even got near, but they still died from smoke. Immediately, by the way, within about 2 days, all smoking was banned on the underground. So that was one very good fire precaution mechanism, but done much too late to save a lot of lives. Another thing is good housekeeping. Good housekeeping keeps fires down. When you let build-up of flammable materials and rubbish occur anywhere, well, you're just putting down fuel and waiting for the fire. So housekeeping, let's get rid of that. It could be let's reduce the amount of flammable substances. There are some substances we have to use because of the nature of our organization. Perhaps we're a printing company and we have a lot of inks. Well, the ink can go on fire. So what we could do is we could say, let's keep all the ink in a store in a different part of the building or in a different building, maybe on the other side of our compound. So if it goes in fire, and we'll just bring in as we need. We need is what an iterative process. You do your risk assessment and you have a risk and you look at it. And if that risk is low enough that you can accept it, if it's tolerable, if it's, you say, fine, that's great. All we need to do is keep reviewing it to make sure nothing changes. And the idea of the controls is to lower that risk. And once you put in the control, you then do the risk assessment again. And you say, now what's the risk? It was too high, so we put in a couple of controls. Still too high. What does that tell me? I need more controls. Or else the controls I brought in are not working. They're not effective. So you just keep going round and round and round. You repeat until you stop. And you stop whenever you say, yes, we've done all this. And risk is. At that point, just review it whenever. So monitor and review all of this. Be sure to identify and record any sources of heat and any smoking. Somebody's smoking. Imagine you're smoking in a petrol station. Oh, I've seen that. I have actually seen it. And I'm going, what bloody hell? What's going on here? So identify and record any unsafe conditions. Spills left out there, petrol spills on the ground. Nobody's clearing them up or anything like that. So, and we just see typical fires there. I can remember on one occasion, beside a concrete, and it was in, I think it was in Arizona over in America, and left in the ground, but it was a curved mirror. And somebody had left it in the ground beside the building. And as the sun moved across the sky, rising in the east, getting higher and higher and higher, and setting in the west during the course of the day, the sun's rays, the curved mirror, focused them onto the side of the building. Burned scorch mark right across the edge of the building, the wall of the building. It was a white painted wall, and wham, we saw this big burn mark. And that burn mark was the path of the sun across the sky, reflected in the mirror. So when you find a problem, your risk assessments may reveal a problem. And when that happens, you need an action plan. Right, we've got action plans: reduction of rubbish, relocation of stored materials, minimize the amount of stored chemical. You can do things called corrective. Now, don't confuse correct with corrective action. We have a flammable liquid that has spilled on the floor. There is danger of fire. The first thing you do is put it up, clean that up, put down some sand, go around, don't let it spread, seal it off, put sand on it or whatever, or some granules to absorb it, and then mop the thing up, clean it up, get it out of the way. You're not doing corrective action. You're doing correction. You're fixing the symptom. Corrective action then comes after. For the same thing more than once, it means you're not doing corrective action. So the corrective action might be to say, how did that get spilled there? Was it because people are not trained how to handle this material? Is it people are trained, but they don't have the right equipment? Exactly what is the reason why that happens? So you have to look at that. And when you do that and you correct the cause, That's corrective action. So correction corrects the symptom, corrects manifestation, but the reason for it, that's addressed by corrective action. Okay, so thank you if you're still with me. I do appreciate that very much. I'm going to talk, and I some.
So time for question. You want to go for question? Yeah, we have a very nice question. But before then, permit me to congratulate you in behalf of the student, because I believe that they were satisfied with you.
Thank you.
You can upload. Satisfied. Thank you very much. Yeah, you have done well. Please, as far as it depends on you, you all can unmute yourself, namely your video, so that we can see you. As far as it depends, if it does not disturb you, you can unmute your video, want to see. Somebody asked a very nice question in the chat board, and I told him to stay till the end. We're gonna answer. So the question is, please, sir, why is it that once fire starts, the doors of the building or car are locked and it is hard?
That happens when somebody's got something wrong. They should. In any automated system, as soon as there's a fire, as soon as an emergency is triggered, it doesn't have to be a fire. It can be any kind of evacuation. It can be a bomb scare in any areas where there's militant activity. And remember, in Ireland, we had 30 years of the IRA fighting the British. I have been blown up nearly twice, and I've lived through lots of scares like that. So whenever there is any kind of alert like that, and people start to evacuate, all doors should unlock automatically. There must be nothing stopping you getting out. And that is why I'm saying on that occasion where someone locked the fire doors, they ended up going to jail for doing that because people died. The time where I had to kick the door down, it was work, and so when the important question there. Thank you, Gary, asking that. How do you attack the fire?
Before we come to that question, there is a first.
Okay.
Yes, you can ask your question before we come to.
I wonder, are you any relation to Sinach, by the way? I met Sinach, and I very much like her song Waymaker.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think my own is not really a question, it's an input.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, then go for
it. I think sometimes when there is fire outbreak that like that, the cause of it.
We are having difficulty to hear you. We are having difficulty. Your network is not stable.
Okay.
Please,
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Okay. I say it's an input. I wanna contribute some things. I say when there is fire outbreak, I think sometimes it caused by wire surrounding the environment to make the doors to be shut. It can cause it to some wires grounding can make it to the doors to be shut. Yeah. And again, when the doors are shut in that way, I think sometimes it forces a barrier to stop the fire to spread more. When doors are shut, So it causes a barrier for escalation of fires to extend some other areas. That's my input.
Yes, it's a valuable input, but the key thing is when you're shutting the door, make sure the only thing on the other side of it is the fire, not the people. All fire exit routes should be open. The last person out can close them behind them, but the actual fire exit must never be. You must never be able to seal that off. Now, this means that there's always a conflict with security. Now, I do a little bit of security work now and again, in almost every country in the developing world I've been, I can beat security. I have got into highly secure facilities and they don't know how I get in, and I can get in. And I say, once you get in, it's actually very easy to get out. Anywhere in the world, it should be easy to get out. And the more developed the country, the easier it is to get out. Because let's say I go in, I sneak in, I do whatever nefarious deed I wanted to do that I wanted to sneak in for. And then what I do is I go and I hit the fire alarm. And everybody, hundreds of people have to evacuate the building. And as they evacuate, I walk out with these hundreds of people. So the fire exit, it's always an issue with security. And of course, in Niger, when I walk into the hotel and even in my own home, all the windows are barred to stop robbers getting in. But the difficulty is that you sometimes stop you getting out. So you have to be sure that you can always exit. So security for kind of physical security that way and fire security don't always go hand in hand. You have to be very careful how you balance them. I mean, I know some people and they locked up their fire extinguishers because people were stealing them. I said, what are you going to do if there's a fire? Oh, someone will come. And of course, I said, well, by the time the guy gets here, which involves bringing people to the fire, not away from the fire, but when it gets here, it's going to take them 5 or 10 minutes to unlock all this and distribute them. So that's just not going to work.
Okay. Thank you very much. Before we come back to Mr. Ume Francis, there is a second question in the chat box saying, how do we attack the fire? Like from which direction? Do we sweep or concentrate on one point? So I think
you concentrate on the base of the fire, right? So all the little bits around the edges, don't worry about it. If you put that out and the main fire is going, it'll only reignite those after a while. The water will evaporate off and they'll go back and fire. Hit the base of the fire, the core of the fire, right in that center. If you can't kill that, you're not going to kill that fire. Time for you to go. Now, from which direction? Always make sure behind you is the fire exit. And you keep looking round. Keep your head on a swivel. Watch what you're doing in front, but keep those glances behind you or have somebody behind you watching you. And you make sure that the fire doesn't sneak round and get behind you and get between you and the exit. So you're not going to go round the fire, leaving it between you and the exit. You're not going to do, I'll go through this room, that room, and I'll attack it from the other side. No, you're just making it, you're just trapping yourself. So that's the direction you approach from, an exit behind you that you will not, that will always be kept clear. You keep open your line of retreat at all times. Very important.
Thank you. I hope it's very clear. Now, then we go to Francis Ume before we come back to the last question on the chat box. Mr. Francis, Mr. Ume, you can unmute yourself.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Flynn, for the very good presentation that you have made. I just have like 2 contributions or so to make. The first is we normally have this conflict between security and safety. I think it's part of what's responsible for the confusion when you virtually have a fire incident and people begin to lock up themselves instead of opening the door.
Yeah.
Because sometimes put burglary proof all around our windows, our doors, and all that, and we try to prevent ourselves from burglars, from robbers, from kidnappers, and all kinds of crime. And in the process, we forget about the safety. Sometimes when the fire incident eventually happens, it becomes a problem. Because you are now in a panic mode, instead of opening the door, you begin to lock it. You repeat it, you open it, you lock it, you repeat it, and you say the door is locking itself. I think it is just panic that has set in. And that also brings to fore this whole essence of fire marshal in places of big organizations. People that have been trained, people that know that they have to, as much as possible, stay calm and lead the people out. Sometimes when we say the doors are locked, we are the ones opening it and locking it out of panic by ourselves. So that's one leg of it. The other comment I would like to make is I would like to draw a correlation between the experience you said you made, I think somewhere in Nigeria, where people actually parked and blocked the fire exit. You took the management through the fire exit and they found that the cars were parked on the fire exit. They eventually
it was Okadas
okay.
on the fire
road. Blocked it. Okay, so they blocked it, and they eventually they blocked it after 2-3 days. Typical of us, they were back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you also talked capped it by saying, well, you have done your bit. I want to now relate that to what I think it was Osinachi's question yesterday, that when you have a conflict between what you are doing and the manager, and because of the poor personal relationship that the manager has with workers, the HSC officer is having problems because the manager just wants the job done, irrespective of the health and safety processes and procedures that they are supposed to follow. And I think we eventually ended that conversation yesterday saying that there has to be some kind of documentation, report, take it higher, another higher. So I was a little taken aback when you said, well, you have done your bit at that. Because tomorrow, if there's an incident, it becomes an issue. So I'm just trying to link these two, documented it, take it a bit higher, when you now this thing. So those are just my observations.
You're absolutely documented. It was in my audit report, which was presented to management. But remember, I'm only a contractor. They in for consultancy or for audit. I do my job. They I'm not a member of that firm, and then I have to leave to fulfill elsewhere in the world. So I went in and I point out everything I can. I guide them to the solution as best I can. If they decide, oh, this is some crazy white man, ignore him. Nothing I can do. I have no power. But I will tell you that the organization that this happened, I'm not going to mention it. I do have client confidentiality, so I can't. But the organization that did this, if I mentioned it, everyone in West Africa would know this organization. Now, the other thing you're saying about the security, it really came home to me the very first time I went to Port Harcourt. And I was in Pitaqua, Port Harcourt, and I was doing something for what was then NISP, Nigerian Institute of Safety Professionals. I think it's now called ISPON or something. And I was training some of their people, and they had a person who brought my kid. And I went there, and then in the world bar, big key to, and he said, we heard last year, and now I live in a cage. And that was the first thing. There's a fire. How the hell do you get out of here?
Thank you very much for your contribution, Mr. and all of you that contribute. This is the fact. This just confirm what we discussed yesterday. Proper documentation is a life-saving matter. So as a contractor, he said, even if he finished his contract and left and leave, his documentation will be useful years after, because he's going to submit it to the company and the company will make good use. So proper documentation is always good. Now we come to the next question that have been answered, somebody was asking about the material. Please ask for the material, both the slides and your material. Everything is going to be sent to you through your mail, with through which you register. So you contact the secretariat, I mean the one with you, there you contact them, and everything is gonna be sent to you. We have said it, but it wasn't in the class. So do not worry about it. And I also your class, even that you are coming today. I don't know the reason why, but at the secretariat, right, you have answer to it. So somebody was asking, why does fire cause overheating oil in a pan escalate when putting off water? So else has answered such a question.
Oil and water do.
Yeah, exactly.
It spreads.
Yes, that's very good. Thank you very much. By the way, yeah, before we come to Madam Osinachi, but have crossed, or maybe you will cross Mr. Flynn under, when you notice among the thing drop in the shark box, you drop a reference about Oyinbo blood.
You, Leon, I only send it to you because I was on the road.
Yeah. Sorry. So, yeah, permit me. So, Mr. C. John Flynn is also known under another name, that is Sin Hayes. Sin Hayes is
John Hayes.
Okay.
John Hayes. It's my pseudonym for the book that I wrote, because I want to keep that part. I want to keep my work as an author. It's a totally separate career. I want to keep it totally different from my from my health and safety work. So this is the book. It's called Oibo.
About it, yes.
And it's about an Irishman getting involved in oil politics in Niger, and it's available on Amazon. So you can download it onto your Kindle on Amazon. And there's even there's a few drawings in it. And what we've done is we've taken some photographs and turned them into drawings. So this beautiful lady,
how many Flynn is a rich Jagaban, as you can see from his you always make reference to Lagos. So how many of you know Lagos very well? I know that most of you are in Nigeria.
Omo Buroko. On the Yoruba sometimes call me Babo Nikba.
Yeah. Guy is not taking. John Flynn can sell you in Lagos. I mean, the delegate.
I know the best suya joints in Lagos. Go when I want to drink kai kai.
Thank you very much. You really appreciate contribution. So gradually we are coming to
stand up.
Yeah. Okay, please.
Sir.
Yes, we are following you, madam.
My question goes like this. I don't know. How do we manage and how do we eliminate fear and emotions when there is a very big, massive fire outbreak? Because I observe that sometimes when there is a fire outbreak, fear and emotions that cause the death rate.
Yeah. Panic causes death. There's no doubt about it. In any situation, you can take situations that are basically very simple, very easy to get out of. But when somebody panics, the whole thing gets far, far worse. Now, you will, because we are all human and nobody can predict exactly how humans behave. You can't even predict exactly how you will behave yourself. You can guess, you'd like to think in a sensible manner. Until it actually happens to you, you can never be sure. You can help a little bit. And that's part of the reason we have a fire drill. So let's say that leave. You have to walk a certain route to the fire muster point, and you have to stay there until somebody comes and, are you there, Osana? Osana, she's there. Then if you do that 2 or 3 times, when the real thing does happen, God forbid it does, but when the real thing happens, you'll be much more likely to almost automatically do, I've done this before when I was just chatting to my friends, it was normal, I'm just going to do exactly what I did before. So you're not suddenly having, what should I do? What should I do? Oh, I have to go to this place. Where is it? I have to do it all before. When you do something 2 or 3 times, it's much easier to do it again. So this is part of the purpose of drills. Just do what you were trained to do. Do it of training. Do what you've been told to do before. Do it now. In the event, some people will still panic. You've done your best to minimize it. Remember, there's no certainty. We're all going to die one day. If you say to bed today, I want to stay safe in bed, a lot of people die in their beds. So you just have to do your best. And training for these, that's good. I mean, I've got to the stage now where I can remember sitting in Wari on one occasion. Decades ago, I was sitting in Wari with other guys, and all of a sudden, all these shots were fired very close to us, and they all dived under the table. And I'm sitting with my hand laughing. And they said, John, get down, get down, get down. I said, why? Shooting. And I said, yeah, there's a guy just on the other side of the wall about 10 feet away. And he just let off a couple of shots with a revolver. And 2 or 3 shots came from the security guards who have rifles. If he's still there, he's dead. He's gone. So would you get up all right? Now, the reason why I didn't kind of panic and dive under the table like they did, I've been shot at. I've had guys try to stab me in my country. I've had guys try to stab me in Lagos. I've been blown flat in my face by an explosion. Now, I know what to do when it happens again. I even had a guy put a gun on me and I stuck my finger down the barrel. Said, if you pull that thing, it'll blow up in your face. So, once you know what to do, everything becomes much, much simpler.
Thank you very much. But by the way, more we practice safety, more courageous we become. Remember last time I talked of we need to be fearless. We need to be strong. Not only strong and unmovable. More we are in contact with safety practices, more because fear is true. We have wholesome fear, but morbid fear. Because morbid fear can make us not even to do the simple thing we can. And by the way, fear has 2 definitions. Fear has 2 definitions. The first one, forget everything and run away. Well, you can make use of the second definition. Face everything and rise. So, yes.
I will tell you something to back up what you said. I was in Kuwait once, and Kuwait has a big oil refinery in the coast. And some people driving past the oil refinery noticed a column of smoke coming from the oil refinery. They phoned their families. They said missiles from across the Gulf. We're about to be invaded. Half the country went into panic. Several people were killed in the rush to get home to their loved ones. There was no attack at all. It was a whole lot of nonsense. What it is, the oil refinery was having a fire drill, and as part of the fire drill, they were a firefighting team, and they had taken down a couple of dozen tanks, poured petrol over them and set them on fire for the fire team to come and extinguish them. This was just a very simple, very normal, well planned out in advance drill. And the people outside didn't know that, and that ended up causing a panic which killed people. So fear and panic kill.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I believe over the time, all of us going to be courageous because we start one day and continue moving. Thank you very much. We appreciate everyone online tonight. And of course, the network is very fair. That's why majority of us, we are still 20 number. I really appreciate. Today is Friday, and in my country, Friday is...
There was still a question in the chat, and I suggest that the fire outbreak, is it fire or take take and call for help? So we had this in the class. So let's see if the class can answer this.
Thank you, Elsie. So you can raise up your hand, please, and answer. What should you do? Is it to run away? Is it to fight? Or you need to call for help? Yeah, Madam Osinashi, your hand is... No, somebody else. Please wait first. Janet Olaleye, our governor. She raised up her hand. Yes, Madam Olaleye.
Yes, good evening, class. Good evening, everyone. According to the lecture we had this night, I think when there is a fire outbreak, the only time fire is not something, it depends on the size, but fire is not something you can face, you can fight yourself. The only time you need to fight... Hello, babe.
Yeah, we are following you. Don't talk to babe.
Hello?
Talk to us. Don't talk to your babe. We are following you. Are you with us? I am hearing hello, babe.
She was on the right lines. I believe I know what she was going to say.
The time you need to on the way, if you're in exit door. But if not, just look for a way out.
Yeah. Probably because of network. Okay, we'll come back to you. Let's go to okay, you are online now. Okay, yes, we can hear you. Go on, Madam Olaleye. Okay, then let's bring in Osinashi, so you will still come back before we have a lot of hands. We have Delight Nelson. Delight Nelson, please can you unmute yourself? Delight
So who's
Nelson.
contributing now? Is it me?
Yes.
Okay, so when you cite a fire outbreak, if you are a trained personnel, you don't have to run away from fire. Are you running away? Where are you running to? Who are you leaving the fire for? What you need to do is for you to create awareness. Tell the institution where you are working that is a fire outbreak. Then if you are a well-trained personnel, you find a way of even fighting the fire while you create awareness, at the same time create awareness that is a fire somewhere. If it is something that you can't fight the fire alone, but if it is little fire you can fight alone, you keep on creating the awareness while you go towards fighting that fire. You don't run away. Where are you running to? If it is your company, are you going to allow your company to burn out? You don't run away from fire. That is my own contribution, sir.
Thank you very much. So the first option is not to run away, right?
Yes, you will, if you are part of that team, you will have been trained to fight the fire. You will have been given the equipment to fight the fire. So it will be your job to fight the fire. And you will know that anyway. There will be no doubt in your mind. You will have been instructed, trained, and provided with the equipment. So you will know that is part of your duties, part of your job, and you are capable for it. If there is any doubt in your mind, am I supposed to fight this fire or not? Then the answer is clear. No, get out of the way of the people who are designed to do that. Now, this depends very much on the culture of the country you're in. In all of Western Europe, there are fire brigades, government fire brigades and volunteer fire brigades. They all have very good response times, and because of this, We don't bother to train people. There are many large organizations, they have fire marshals. The fire marshals are not trained to fight anything except the tiniest little fire. Any major fire, their job is to get everybody clear and let the professionals handle it. Even in the oil refineries, there are dedicated teams for that. Most of the people who work in the oil refineries are not trained to fight fires. They're trained to evacuate and let the firefighting team tackle it. Now, that's in Western Europe. You will have other places and you don't have a fire brigade within a reasonable distance of you that you can expect to get assistance from. So you have no choice in the matter. You have to have your own kind of team. Or what you have to do, I can remember again, it was the same organization that I was in Lagos that I had the problem with the fire exits. They were asking me, well, you know, we're trying to cut costs. So what we're thinking of doing, we have our own fire brigade, but we're thinking of actually putting, and he mentioned Julius Berger, who wasn't too far away. We're going to put them on a retainer and then we can share their fire brigade so they can come to us as well, because it's not likely that their facility and our facility would go on fire at the same time. So they're quite close. So we're going to pay them a retainer so they can come to us. And I said, well, look, I mean, I don't know the state of your finances. I don't know much about your other company. So it doesn't sound like a good idea to me. If you have your own thing and it's working, that seems fine. So that was okay. And within the next 2 months, there was a major fire in Apapa. And I think that was... There's, if you know where the Star Brewery is in Apapa, there's a big roundabout with a goat market, and Star Brewery is there. And if you go up that road, there's a big oil storage facility, and that thing went on fire. And then also from VI, a couple of weeks after that, I was looking out and saw a massive column of flame going up. Oh, sorry, that was the Apapa one, and that was a document storage facility in Apapa, and that thing went on fire. No, it wasn't. It was the LG warehouse in Apapa went on fire. And these happened very near to where my client had, in fact, they were almost right next door to where my client had outliers of their organization. And they decided after that, you know what, John, I think we'll just keep our own fire brigade. And I said, I think you're very wise.
Thank you very much.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
the oil facility that is referring to is OVH at Apapa that went on fire, like he described it now. OVH went on fire. OVH is the former Oando. So that facility went on fire. I think that's what he's referring to. I'm trying to remember the name. I just have to remind him.
We also have the last question in the chat box. Somebody asked, it was Delight Nelson. Is it right, when you are engulfed in fire, is it right to roll repeatedly on the floor, but the fire starts at the base?
Right. If the floor is on fire, you don't roll in the fire. The idea is once you step out of the fire, you don't want to be standing upright with your entire body in flames. If you lie down and you roll, you will actually, the part of you that hits the floor, there's no oxygen in there. So you can actually end up putting out the fire. Remember your fire triangle: heat, oxygen, and fuel. You're the fuel. Your clothes are the fuel. You're on fire, so it's hot. You can't get rid of the heat. If you can jump into water, great, fine, as long as you don't drown or the shock kill you or something like that. But you can if you lie on the ground and roll. Of course, if you have people with you, they should be taking off heavy clothes and smothering the flames with them. But rolling, lie down and roll, but obviously not on the floor if it's on fire. Move away from the fire quick as you can. Normally what happens is, you know, you're running along and next thing you've run past the fire and a little bit of you suddenly, some of your clothes catch fire and your coat goes on fire. You know, if you can get rid of it and take it off, great. If it's the rest of your clothes, you don't really have time to take off your tie and your shirt and pull off your vests and all this kind of stuff. So you just have to lie down and roll to get the flames out.
Thank you very much. Now, we really benefited a lot from today's class. Finally, let's take the last hand. Mr. Ume, we still have a contribution. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening once more. I just want to quickly mention that there's an aspect of the last, there's one question that was asked, which is that the issue of that else wanted us to answer. You know, I noticed that we left out the aspect of if the fire is between you and the exit, then that way you have to fight your way out.
Yeah,
Whether you
have no choice. You're right.
You have no choice. The fire is between you and the exit. That way you have no choice. You have to fight your way out. You know, so if I remember correctly, I think there were like 3, the way he listed them during the presentation. First and foremost, raise alarm. Then, if you're not trained, take a flight. Then if the fire is between you and the exit, then you have to fight your way out.
Yeah.
So I think I just say I should quickly put that in.
But this is why we like to have more than one fire exit, so that there is always an exit that is not covered by the fire. So the fire's over that way. It's between me and that exit. But here's an exit that's clear. I'm going to get out and leave it for the fire brigade.
Thank you very much. If everyone, in fact, you have made tonight's course very successful. We live up to our words. Flynn has proved to be a superhero to each one of us tonight, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I noticed newcomers, namely Alako, Lucky, and someone else that was off and on. We really appreciate each one of you. Today marks the last session of this week, and as I said, so on Monday we're going to resume the second end, and I make a good report at the end of the day. Thank you very much. Today being Friday, we are more relaxed, and it will be preferable that we can see your face. We can see your face, but sadly, because of network, to see who I'm directing with. Who are always, we can see Madam Olasimbo again. I know all of you are beautiful and handsome men more than me, so I'm really happy to see you. That's very good. That's it. So enjoy yourself. I thought Els was inviting us for meal this evening because she has prepared a very nice meal. So thank you very much. Tomorrow, do follow us in the Telegram. Tomorrow we are migrating to the Telegram chat. We really appreciate
Mr.
everyone.
Leo.
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Leo.
Yes, please.
Before leaving, one input. All the people that sometimes in some situation it is more important to be wise as compared to be brave, because bravery is not always the solution. Being heroic is not the solution always. This is something related to the course. And secondly, regarding the PPEs, I would like to know what kind of hard helmet you are wearing today. Just, you know, yesterday you have the other one, and today your helmet, right?
My helmet is there. Green and yellow.
Yes, to Mr. Flynn. Yeah, he's the man who is.
I'll tell you something funny. What relating directly to what you're saying. I do the Indian religion called Sikhism.
I know.
Sikhs have to wear a turban on their head. Now, to ride motorbikes, cannot put it on. There was special condition Sikhs. The army, when we were in the army, they didn't have to wear certain helmets because turbans that they would actually wear. So that's just when you mentioned PPE. It really annoyed me.
Like they have turbans, you know.
But it's one thing that annoyed me about never as good and it's out to the organization, like the fire exit being so clear days later. leg Shola insisted that everybody wear, because I area before, oh, here for helmet. And then I helmets and they made it law. And then everybody after a year started in. So now they're driving helmet. I've only ever been in an Okada once, and that was when I was in a and I had no choice. Only time I've been on an Okada, and I will walk Oshodi midnight, and the boys run away. So I don't care about any of that. Okay, I won't travel on an Okada.
I miss also WhatsApp weather. Yeah.
No.
Right. I thought that journey.
So this is very inspirational, and we are giving by example.
Yes.
Our people, you can say, yeah, on this one. So that so it's like leading by example, right? So, we asked
Of course.
some to buy from my using this. So always be on. So now it is proved, yeah, this really today. Export for the definitely thing is asking, and he's he master of everything. He is actually the real of association, and this we have to, and as I told about Asian taste, as for Africa, lucky, and we definitely I see what too much. So yeah, thing and.
Recording in progress.
Knowledge as compared to the other people regarding the fire especially, and as he is available, so you can utilize this opportunity. It is the best opportunity. You can even ask any question regarding any safety stuff, any field, any topic, because he knows the things much. Because I told you, he got the experience maybe more than my age. So you can just imagine that how much he is capable of and how much he is expert in this field. And Mr. John Flynn, nice to see you.
Yes,
Long
it is.
time. And happy to see you, as we are all. And thank you. Yeah, Mrs. You have some word to say? Because now you are feeling relaxed.
Yeah, no, you know, I agree completely. Sean is fantastic on so many fields and such a nice person. And I don't bow for a lot of people, but I will bow for him in every aspect that he has shown here today. And I must say, I think this is the the most detailed version, you know, because you give a presentation and sometimes details differ, especially when the group is asking different questions and so on. I think this is the most complete version of his presentation that I heard up to now. So yeah, I you shouldn't bow for anybody, but if you bow for somebody, bow for Sean.
And me too, you need to bow for me.
I'm an Irishman. You don't bow to Irishmen. We bow to no one, and no one bows to us.
Yeah.
Don't like that.
It's just a sign to recognize.
You need to know something about European people. I swear, and I'm not the only one. I heard a Ghanaian person say that also. That was in Ireland, because to me he lives in Ireland. It's not UK. Irish people are the most polite, courteous people from Europe. If you go, if you have the chance to go anywhere, go to Ireland, please, because they're fantastic, fantastic people, and
Yeah.
Sean is such a good example. But don't challenge them, eh? Don't look for war.
Yeah.
Have the knowledge
Exactly.
to fight.
Before
You can always challenge me to drinks.
Yeah. Because before previously 2014 to 16, I have my MD, managing director. He was the Irish guy, Mr. Mike, and he was awesome guy. Very kind, very caring, and believe me, he was the real mentor. He was the real boss. And means it is, you know, it is. I maybe the people over here, they have very good class now. They will be in very good mode, and what they will be thinking that way means all the talk about this thing. But you know, you need to know the guy who is teaching you what is his capability, what is his personality. So that is means it when you see someone who got something, you should try to connect with him. Okay, so this, you know, he is amazing man. This book by Mr. Flynn, and I owe him some work for that. Mr. Flynn, I remember that I'm just here and there, and I was in some situation, but I will do my commitment, and I will be doing the work. So means he is the man of talents, you know. And now you guys are very lucky that he has special things towards Nigeria and Africa. Seriously, literally, it is like that. You know, it is very means it is not. I am not means, you know, going into that stuff. But you know, these guys from this Europe and this means how they are and what is the things. Not all the people, but he is the best Irishman, because I knew some Irishman. As Michelle said, they are very nice guys. I don't know why they are so much nice. There is something.
I'm getting embarrassed now.
Means they are very caring. They are very good, and they are best at doing things what they do. I have chance to work and know the these British guys and the other people, but Irish people, they do best what they do. My MD, he was a marketing guy, and he was hell of a marketer. You know, same is when we happen to meet Mr. Flynn. You better know. You experience just right now that Mr. Sean, yeah,
Sean.
oh yeah, Mr. Sean, he explained everything in such a good and, you know, interactive way and interesting way. I know yesterday we have lecture, before we have lectures, and definitely we bored you as well. And nobody was willing to ask or tell anything. But now that is the thing that we don't have, and he had. He can make his audience to get into interaction. And it is not just because it is the charisma of his personality, his knowledge, and he is a guy, and we wish him. Literally, I always keep thinking about him. The world needs such people. We need such people. and we wish him a healthy, successful, happier life. May he live longer and longer, and we always can benefit from his knowledge and his personality and his care and affection. And thank you very much, Mr. John Flynn, for being here with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And definitely from core of our heart, we thank you very much to be here and in time always. When OSHA Association needs someone, he is there. He is a great man, and literally very pleased and excited, and cannot hold my words and talk. And it is going and going and going, because in even last sessions we have not seen each other. So I was very excited today to see you, and same will be with the other delegates. And thank you very much again. Okay, now over to you. I have to already a lot of time. Okay, Mr. Leon, to you.
Thanks everyone. In fact, this is the best way we can run off tonight's session. We really appreciate each one of you, the sacrifice you put, the sacrifice you made to be present. We really appreciate. Rest assured that it will impact you more than what you think. Let our expectation be beyond what you discover here. Thank you very much. So, having said this, let me give honor to the governor of the class, Madam Olaleye. Either she will close it or she will designate somebody to close the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you on behalf of the class members, and we're saying thank you to Mr. John Flynn. We really enjoy the lecture. We really appreciate. At least you've taught us many things on how to fight fire. We are so grateful. Once again, we say thank you, coordinator. Really appreciate. God bless you.
Recording in progress.
God bless you. And I think there'll be nothing more to say.
Thank you very much. We know that it's late, and for the women, the husband or the man will need the attention. For the men, the wife will need the attention. So it's late, we know. Well, thank you for offering your time. We really appreciate it. On Monday, we're going to meet, so you can meet yourself or meet yourself with each other. I'll see you on Monday. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Bye.
Bye. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Very, very nice.
Bye. Bye.
Recording stopped.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.
Have a nice
Bye, everybody.
Bye.